way you see the current state of modern man and his or her psyche?
Okay, so there's a million ways to answer that question. Of course, it depends on what discipline you're coming out of. So I should delineate my discipline, and all of my comments are rooted in or founded in the discipline that I cleave to, that constitutes the path in my life, and that is the discipline of soul phenomenology. So when you ask me what's the state of our world or human beings today, I only want to answer from the point of view of the soul. What's happening to us as soul beings. So those who don't accept that we have a soul would probably turn it off about now. But since we are soul beings, that's my stance. The question can be addressed as to what is the state of soul and what is the state of human beings as soul beings today. And again, I'm not the only one to say these things, at least initially, but the state that we're in today is generally recognized from the soul's point of view to be one of absolute deprivation of soul life. That we were living our lives devoid of any relationship to soul or the psyche. And our technological civilization is built on that. Now I've done a lot of research on beyond my discipline into other disciplines to find out how other people are regarding soul, and there's no doubt that there is a concerted effort worldwide to eliminate psyche or soul from the vocabulary so that we can no longer think soulfully or psychologically, you might say. That's been going on for a century or so, and it seems unstoppable. It's a bit like George Orwell's book 1984, where they invent newspeak and they create a new way of speaking by eliminating words that they don't want. And if you eliminate words that you don't want, you can't think those thoughts. So I think there's a general agreement in those who are interested in spirit and soul that the state of the human being today is the state of one who is split off from his own soul life through this, what I like to call conspiracy of language. As long as you accept that loosely, I don't think there's an organization sort of plotting that.
Oh, that was going to be one of my questions. Yeah, this concerted effort, is this conscious? Is this unconscious?
No, it's unconscious. It's our, it's what we privilege in our culture without thinking about it. So around the 19th, end of the 18th century, metaphysics as a way of talking, as a way of speaking, as a way of gathering members of a culture together through uniform meanings. And in those times it was God, metaphysics, has died off, or some would say been killed off. There's absolutely no room in the dominant styles of discourse today for anything to do with a metaphysical God. It just is not happening. And of course, if you dispense with that, you have to dispense with all metaphysical language, and the effort in doing that today is a tsunami. It really is unstoppable. So anyone who wants to privilege soul life and sort of answer the question, what's the state of the world, what's the state of the human being today, you have to develop a way of saying it that doesn't relegate you back to the 18th and 19th century in terms of the words you use and the rhetorics you use. You have to find some way to speak out of the contemporary world picture and say the things you need to say about the state of man from the soul's point of view, without mentioning the word soul, for example. Mm-hmm. That's what I spent the last 30 or 40 years trying to do. Okay. So the short answer to your question is we are trying to live lives, or we're trying to exist as beings absent of any soul life. absent of any spiritual life.
Sort of intuitively, I'm sure many people have felt this as well. That seems to be the source of much of the anguish and depression that we see in society. Would you agree with that? And yeah, is depression, especially, lots of, I mean, I was going to say men, but a lot of women as well. Is this lack of meaning? Is this from an absence of soul life, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So we've got a double whammy here. We've got the absence of soul life, which is the only source of meaning, by the way. That's the only source of meaning that can be given to us through soul. And that's been so ever since we've been on Earth up until our technological civilization. But the double whammy is that we've lost the language to express the lament or the tragedy or the despair of that. And so in various quarters, people are trying to develop language that can say these things without mentioning the word soul or spirit. But it's a double whammy. People are, just because we shovel our soul life, our soul being off to one side as far as the culture is concerned, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It means it's been marginalized. And so people are suffering terribly from loss of soul, but they have no way to say it. It's as Corban said, who's a famous Indologist, studied the Sufis, as he said, it's a double catastrophe. We've lost the keys to the kingdom, and he means by that soul and spiritual life, and then we've forgotten that we've lost them. So it's both. It's been that loss has been normalized, so it's a double whammy for us. So people are suffering terribly, but with no way to say it except where's the nearest pill.
Often, I mean, that we'll revisit why language is so important, I imagine, throughout these discussions. But I'm often struck with and it's true, it's hard to talk about these things, because I often, if I do that with people in Sydney, I get met with a fierce, quite a really strong reaction against soul, against anything to do with spirit. Why do you think it's okay? For example, comparing with Latin culture, modern culture, they might be a little bit more okay. Soul life might not be so important to them, but at least there's a certain openness to that's perhaps a reality. Okay, I don't. Maybe it's not out of my interest. It doesn't concern me so much, but the vitriol against it is not there. Where I sort of experience that in the Western cultures.
It's a really good question. If people are living soulfully, they have no need to mention soul. I mean, for example, in Spain, they can speak duende, which is a dark, chthonic or earth spirit that plays through their music, the flamenco. If it's Portugal, it's fado. And so it comes through their music and through their cultural productions, like their paintings. So they don't have to specifically address whether they have a soul or not. They're just living that way. And many countries still are doing so. So if you try to talk to them about soul, they may not know what you're talking about. But they're living that way. So you and I have been to India, and when I came back from India, I didn't talk to any Indian about soul life. It was just everywhere. So that I'd walk about in these ancient cities and be saturated with the soul life. That is the way in which they addressed the goings-on an everyday basis. So you wake up in the morning, I see this old guy with a beard doing his morning rituals and singing his songs as a matter of course. That's soulful. He doesn't have to talk about soul, it's just there. He's just doing it. And I was in Varanasi once, and I saw in the West what would look like a crazy man reeling down the middle of the street, shouting and screaming, uh, with a trident and a white dot there, and a long grey beard, and looking like a scruff bag, street person. Nobody paid any attention. He was a Shiva devotee. But here, he'd be a crazy man. He'd be dangerous because he was naked. Therefore he's dangerous. But there, it just coexists beautifully. And so outwardly, when there's a soul life in the appearances, you don't need to talk about soul. The only time it became important for us to actually focus on soul life, like where is our soul life, came during the period that we know as nihilism, when the metaphysical world for us collapsed, and it just sent our culture into an uproar, as recorded in the arts and literature of the time, early 20th century. So we have a need to address the question. Other so-called third world countries don't, because they're living that way. They go to the shaman for answers, but we can't. So for us, it's a vital question. For many of us, the question is done and dusted. Now let's get on with other things, like AI. So, summing all that up, I would say, the general recognition there's a crisis is true. To think the crisis in terms of soul being or soul phenomenology is pretty much off the table as a kind of discourse that can contribute something. You have to work from the margins, as I've done. I just keep writing and publishing, self-publishing, and I know I'm on the margins of the major discourse.